Good evening. We're going to get underway. I just waited a few minutes. I saw some people walking in. Of course, the one good thing about being here and finding out all kinds of wonderful knowledge about the roof and photovoltaic. Tonight, if you don't have AC, this is a really nice, cool place to be. So welcome to everyone. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we want to welcome everyone here. For anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Michael Moresco. I'm your town administrator. So first and foremost, we'll get right into this. Roofs need to be restored. The roof on the Daniel Webster, Governor Winslow, South River, and Ames Way are nearing end of life. Daniel Webster's probably the worst. That's probably got 1 to 3 years of useful life left. Governor Winslow's right after that, followed by South River and Ames Way. The restoration will add 25 more years of life to the roof. This process will be considerably less than rebuilding each of the school roofs. Up front here, if you want to come up and see what the Tremco roof coating looks like, it's up here. There's 2 samples. It's the white hard material. Goes on as a liquid and it hardens. And the black material around it is what is normally up on flat roofs. So you can see it's quite the difference. The brown or yellowish panels that are there, those are the walkways. So along with the restoration of those 4 roofs I mentioned, this building, Marshfield High School, has wet insulation from what we're assuming is some previous leaks, infrared detected. So this roof will have to replace the insulation, patch those areas, and then on this roof, because all the utilities are up there, we're going to be adding fiberglass walkway because the air handlers, the air conditioning, refrigeration units and stuff, the motors are all up there, which require servicing and people walking on the roof. We're not adding that hard surface on top of the roof that's in this building. This roof's only 10 or 12 years old. Okay, we're moving forward with a whole new process to repair the roofs. We'll be hiring an engineer to assist Fred Russell, our facility director, in drafting of an RFP for restoration to the Daniel Webster, Governor Winslow, South River, and Ames Way roofs, and repairs to Marshfield High School roof with the removal of the wet insulation, sealing of the affected areas, and adding the fiberglass walkway. Once the engineer is in place, the engineer and Fred will conduct another infrared study where the infrared will highlight those areas that need to be repaired in this building. And we'll use that information. We'll all go into the RFP. Time frame to get the RFP put together and out by the middle of September. That allows it to circulate for about 4 weeks with a date somewhere by mid-October to get the RFPs all in. When they would be awarded at special town meeting in December. Right now, we're looking at December 16th. As folks know, that we're at the annual and the special. We had to pick a faraway date. We normally have our special in October, and that's because we're waiting. As you know, we're one of the communities that voted down the MBTA, so we have to wait and see what the Supreme Judicial Court decides. They're supposed to make a decision on the constitutionality of the MBTA legislation sometime mid-October to the end of October. So we pushed our meeting out to December 16th because we'll have to take some action depending upon what the Supreme Court decides. The article for special town meeting would have language which would allow the funds to be borrowed from stabilization so that work could begin sometime in the spring. The heavy work on the roofs get done when the kids are out of school. Proceeds from the photovoltaics would be used to pay down a portion of the note. So the photovoltaics, first and foremost is we got to repair the roofs. Photovoltaics is an option for the town to be able to generate revenue and produce green electricity. As you know, Marshfield is an aggregate electric community, and I see one of the proponents that were here that got that for us, and we actually DPU just held that, not to digress, but it sort of ties into this, that we got really good return on the rate, so we'll be announcing those sometime in the fall once we get everything back from the utility. I thought it was important to share this information regarding the process as we move forward. After each segment tonight, we'll entertain questions from the audience. Just like a town meeting, you'll need to identify yourself prior to asking a question. From the looks of the audience, I won't have to limit participation, but if you see a lot of people at the mics, just be mindful. Let some other people ask their question and then get right back in line. We're in no hurry. We're happy to answer whatever questions that you have. And with that, at this time, I would like to call up the Chair of the Board of Selectmen to make some remarks. Lynn?
Thank you. Okay, we have quite a few people here this evening. I just wanted to get started with just sharing with you how I have come across the information that you too have seen. I hope you've seen on the websites, and there's probably 25, 30 different links for the community to go on and identify and delve into and really try to understand this complex, and I think it's complex, project that we have going, where we have these different schools and the different folks that are involved in it. And I'm happy to hear and promote that we are going to have an engineer that will help Fred with this process. But I want you just to hear what folks have to say. Keep an open mind, because there's a lot of people that I've listened to at town meeting and at our advisory and select board meeting that ask good questions. So that's really what this is tonight. So ask your questions. We may not have the answers to them, but we're working on it and we're going to do this right. So I appreciate all of you coming out here this evening. And last night was an exciting night for the city of Boston. So this may not be as exciting. But hopefully we'll learn a lot tonight. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lynn. This time I'd like to introduce Fred Russell, our facility director, to come up and offer some general comments regarding the roof and our photovoltaics for the roof.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Fred Russell, facilities director, and I'm also a resident at 92 Marginal Street. As you know, roofs are an important building envelope, probably the most important. The roof life needs to match the solar panel life. So we have roofs out there that have 1 to 3 years of life left. So we need to extend that out to 20, 25 years. So we have a restoration process where we're going to coat the roof with the white Tremco Alpha Guard, and then we're going to remove any wet insulation. And with that, we get a 25-year warranty from Tremco, with the exception of the high school, which already has a warranty until 2034. We're not going to be coating the high school. We're going to be just removing the wet insulation and putting in the walkway, the yellow fiberglass walkway, which we found, you'll see during the presentation. The walkway we have up here is actually just a mat, and a lot of times debris, tools, equipment gets dropped or placed, and it cuts the roof. So basically, people need to understand that the solar, there's a payback of about 4 to 5 years for the solar, and we're going to have 25-year roofs. So I think it's a good thing for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jeff Davis from Tremco, who will explain the roof restoration process. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Michael. Everybody, hope you can hear me. My name is Jeff Davis. I'm with Tremco. Our company specializes in developing programs for clients with large roofing inventories, complicated settings, multiple facilities. We function in a consultative capacity with our client base, taking a look at roofs and providing guidance about what can be done to them to extend the life of the roof systems. I've been with Tremco since 1988. Our involvement with the town has been something that actually started in the early 1990s, where we were asked to take a look at a couple of buildings, provide some guidance. I believe it was Winslow was one of the first ones we looked at. We got contacted, I think it was in 2021, when the first discussion about solar came up in town. And one of the asks was to provide some guidance about what we needed to do with these roofs to make them basically solar, what they call solar ready. What that means is when the panels are installed on these roofs, it's a very clumsy process to get these panels off if you had to repair the roof. So it's really a very good, important idea to make sure that the roof systems are upgraded to a point that once the solar panels are installed, you won't have any issues. And that's part of what we've been working on for the last 2 years. We have a presentation, which I hope, I pray, works properly here. This is the solar one. Where's ours? Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, great. Give So we prepared a detailed report, basically a PowerPoint, to give everybody an idea of exactly what we're finding across the roofs. It gives you visibility on what we're seeing and what kind of recommendations we're making. The project started off. The assessment started off with basically an alignment of this narrative describes what's happening across the 5 roofs. The 5 buildings that are involved are the high school, Ames Way, South River, Daniel Webster, and Winslow. And in total, between those 5 buildings, there's about 320,000 square feet of roof area. The solar installation process is going to involve, as I mentioned, it's going to involve a lot of activity on these roofs. They need to be upgraded to a point where they can tolerate the process of installing solar panels. And this process is outlined as we go further through here. Now this just shows in general what a solar installation looks like typically on roof systems. This is certainly not Marshfield. The slide on the left is a low slope membrane roof system that's being fit with solar panels that are on a racking system. Some of the solar panels that are going to be installed will have a racking system. They're sloped to provide basically orientation to the south typically. The picture on the right is a sloped roof that's getting solar panels, and those are being installed on parts of South River, parts of Ames Way, and I believe also on Governor Winslow, on some of the sloped areas. This slide shows basically what the existing roof systems look like sectionally on the different buildings. The Governor Winslow, all these roofs are membrane roof systems. What a membrane roof is, and again, there are samples here that are worth coming up and taking a look at, but a membrane roof system is typically anywhere between 48 and 60 mils thick. Sometimes they can be thicker, but all the membrane roof systems in town that we've come across are either 60 mil or 48 mil PVC membranes. It's a very thin membrane, and these section details show basically how these roofs are constructed. This is another one that talks about the high school roof and Governor Winslow. These show, again, the section details of how these roofs are built and gives you an idea of what we're working with to start. So in 2022, we were released to do a study on the roofs, and in December, we performed a moisture survey across all of the 5 schools, the 5 buildings. We looked at all of the flat roof areas, all the low slope roof areas, and the mission behind this was to first just get an idea of exactly what condition these roofs are in subsurface, in other words, below the membrane. And the only way to do that practically is to use there's two different kinds of testing regimens. One's infrared, which basically is reading heat differentials. Moisture migrates into the roof, causes the insulation not to function properly, and the cameras, the equipment we use, is capable of detecting that. So in December 2022, we found some very good results, honestly, given the age of some of the roofs. The high school, which I know is the newest of the roofs, only had 2.7% of the total area that had wet insulation. And again, when we go further on, you'll see where these areas are. Webster was the one that had the most damage. We found about 8-point-something% worth of wet insulation at Webster. Winslow had 1.7%, very small percentage of wet insulation in the roof. And Amesway had less than 1%, and the South River School had 2.2% of wet insulation. Sometimes we do these studies, and those aren't the findings. We find widespread moisture damage in the roofing assemblies. In this case, the town's very fortunate to not have these roofs let go so far that they can't be taken care of, they can't be restored. So this is one of the moisture survey drawings. This is actually the high school. And if you notice, I don't know how well this is going to work, but if you notice the red areas, those are areas where our testing process found wet insulation in the roofing system. You're going to notice that a lot of that wet insulation is around some of the big, large rooftop units, air conditioning equipment on the high school. There's other areas, isolated areas that we found, but in general, we were able to track this back to physical damage in the roof membranes around a lot of that equipment and pathways leading to that equipment. That dovetails into some of the discussion we're having about installing some enhanced walkway systems on this roof. But in general, again, we finished a survey not too long ago where almost the entire roof was wet. We've caught it at a good time. So this is the high school. And I think this is helpful because I'm not sure if NextGrid is presenting tonight, but this is a drawing from the solar provider that indicates and shows all those little rectangles are solar panels. And I haven't been able to figure that out, but I think there's probably several thousand of them that are being installed across the different buildings. This installation has the largest quantity of solar panels of all the different roof systems, partially because it's as big as it is. Now, when you look at this, these yellow walkways, we're trying our best to show this where they're being installed. We've noticed that, again, one big challenge to this particular building is snow removal activities. In the winter, if you have to move snow to get to rooftop equipment, you have to have a way to get to it, and shoveling snow off of a roof or clearing a way to get to rooftop units sometimes means using a shovel that would impact the roofing system. So these walkway systems are designed to be able to shovel snow easily, they're safe, they allow people to walk back and forth, they're non-slip, and that's partly why they're being installed. We're trying to prevent any further damage after the solar panels are installed. So this gives you an idea. The top photos show what the existing walkway layout is at the high school, which is basically a fairly thin pad that's basically laminated to the roof membrane. And the photos on the bottom show the elevated walkway system that we're recommending across the high school. So the high school is getting the wet insulation materials removed and the walkway system installed prior to solar, as part of the solar process. So we go on to the one that is the one that's having the most trouble at the moment, and that's Daniel Webster. Daniel Webster, there's two different types of roofs on this building. The wings that extend out on either side are what they call PVC membranes. They're sloped membranes. They're 48 mil thick. The roof areas in the middle with all of the red are low slope, they call EPDM membrane roof systems. That's the black, dark colored membrane material if anybody wants to come up and look. That material doesn't do well with any kind of physical damage. It's easily punctured. So we found a fair amount of wet insulation on this roof. Again, these roofs, we're guessing, are 20 to 25 years old at this point. Again, here's a layout of the solar plan for Webster. Again, the majority of the roof is going to be covered with panels when this is done. And just for reference, we're trying to show you the kinds of things that we saw during our 2022 inspection. The upper left-hand corner shows an area around a chimney where moisture has gotten down into the roof system. That area right there would be cut out and removed and repaired before the restoration process takes place. But we also found a number of holes and punctures and so forth in the roofing system that were repaired while we were doing our inspection. Moving on to Winslow, only got 2 more of these to do with you, everybody. Winslow, very good news, generally speaking, right? Large portions of the roof tested negative for moisture. That's a great sign. The areas that are marked red as part of this process, even if they're not receiving solar, are going to be repaired. Those areas of wet insulation are going to be pulled out, repaired, so that we hope to extend the service life of those roof areas as we go. Again, here's a shot. There's a lot of solar panels going up. But the area that the sort of the horseshoe-shaped space around the middle is not getting solar panels, but that's going to be repaired as part of this process. Again, more examples of the kinds of things we ran into in 2022. Areas where laps and seams have started to open up, areas of punctures. If you went on the roof today, that's what you'd see. You'd see white areas that have been marked out where these areas of wet insulation were encountered. On to Amesway. Amesway was a very pleasant surprise. Again, the roof we're thinking it's about 20 years old. We only found 3 small wet areas on this roof that are tracked back to punctures in the roof system. We found little punctures in the roof membrane. But generally speaking, pretty good shape, capable of being restored. And again, here's the solar layout. Again, there's going to be a lot of solar panels on these. We want to make sure the roofs are taken care of properly. So part of the process of doing this work isn't necessarily just touching only the roof areas. On Amesway, I believe there's 19 skylights, something like that. There's glass, they're actually acrylic dome skylights. Many of those skylights are in poor shape. And so part of the process is going to be to replace these skylights and put protection cages over them, which is something that OSHA now requires. There's also, on Amesway, there's 2 roof hatches that are being replaced as part of this, access hatches. But it's not just touching the roof, it's actually doing some other things with the roof as well. And the last one is South River. South River has, again, very good results. 1 small wet area that was found on the low roof and a small area that was found on the upper roof. Same process. These areas are going to be removed and repaired, and the low roof will be restored. Again, on South River, there's portions of the roof that are shingled. Those are going to be treated. Those aren't treated with any sort of restoration process. The attachment of the solar panels is with a mechanical attachment. But on the low slope roof areas, these are all being restored. Again, these are more photos of what we found when we went on South River. Again, if we did nothing, we think this roof has another 12 years or so ahead of it, 12 to 15. All right, so getting down to some math, the far left column obviously is the school. The second column is the square footage of each of the schools. The actual cost of replacement, if you had to actually physically remove and replace the roof systems on these buildings, in total would come up to something like $20 million based on what we're running into in the public bid market. The restoration process across all of these buildings works out to, as of February of this year, about $3.3 million. That's the cost to actually get all of that work done. So just a couple of quick things. One thing that will happen through the course of these projects, no matter when, if we're starting the work in the first day school's out, there's a high probability that some of this work will morph into portions of the school year. The size of the projects, the amount of work involved, all you need is a couple of weeks of bad weather in the summer, and some of the work may extend into the school year. The products that are being used are virtually odorless. They're meant to be installed in hospital settings and healthcare settings and occupied school buildings. So the plan is to make sure that we utilize those kind of products so that if there is any issue with work extending into the summer months, into the school year, that we won't be bothering staff or students. And the last one, this is just sort of an informational slide. So our company, we're a national company. There's a couple $1 billion a year in total. This is a complex out in Detroit called Ford Field. And they were at a point where they were ready to have the roof replaced. They asked us to take a look at this and do an assessment, very similar to what we did for you. And we came up with a plan that involved basically doing the same sort of thing, repairing areas of the roof, removing wet materials, and restoring the roof. And the process, I mean, it's aside from a huge dollar differential, the process saved something like 150 40-yard dumpsters from going into the landfill. In this day and age where things like that are harder and harder to handle, construction debris, this process avoids all of that in Marshfield. So I don't think we have anything else after this. That's it. That's what we have.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Okay. At this time, we'll take questions. Someone from NextGrid was supposed to be here, Landon Smith. Landon, are you here? Yeah, oh, okay, perfect. Landon, do you want to come up and make a presentation? And then right after Landon does his presentation, we'll get into questions. And Landon's a senior construction project manager for NextGrid.
Hi, Landon Smith. So I'm just here to kind of point out what Jeff was talking about, the solar panels, and they had some numbers, so if we want to, is this for me? Yeah, there we go. So we have the total number of panels for the high school is 1,088. This one's the largest, so that'll be the most panels on this roof. We have the numbers for the costs and what the lease terms are. So the middle school, we're also proposing some carports, it looks like. I know it doesn't have to do with the roof, but I think part of the discussions was making sure we're doing a lot of stuff in the summertime. You know, we can be in the carport, building all that during the summer while they're taking care of the roof, so we can get out of everyone's hair as fast as possible. So this one, we didn't split up. There we go. So 2,000 panels on the roof and just under 2,000 in the carport. And I believe, so this is the slope roofs, like they were mentioning. Depending on the slope, we'll have some mechanical attachments. There's not many. It depends on the racking we choose, but the Tremco will come back in, they recertify it, make sure all the attachments don't leak for the 20 years. And we have 510 panels for South River School. And the Eames is 432. So these last pictures are a little more, not to say Jeff's pictures weren't accurate, but those were clearly from California. So these are more local, what would it look like for the carport of the top two pictures, where your typical pedestal will look like in the parking lot, and then those are our typical low slope roof mounts. The racking that would be on the slanted roofs would look a little bit different, but we just wouldn't have all that brick there. They'd be mechanical fastened, and you would just look at panels and some racking underneath. And then the bottom right section is our battery storage system, where some of the schools have it, not all of them, and that's typically what you would see after everything's all said and done. So this is our last photo. So that's all I have. I'm here to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Landon. I'm sure we'll be calling you to answer some questions. At this time, we're at the question and answers. If people want to come up, it's just like town meeting, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's 2 mics up back, there's a mic down here, and like a town meeting, you just need to identify yourself and your address.
David Carrier, 34 Outlook Road. First question I have deals with the Tremco product. One thing I want to point out is that when it deals with the Furnace Brook Middle School, the high school, and the elementary school in Furnace Brook, we are talking about Zone 2 of our aquifer, and the bylaw 285-19-1 says that you have to communicate with the DPW and the Board of Health, the Water Department, and the town engineer regarding PFASs that are being brought in and how you're going to keep them from getting into the ground soil, or how you're going to replace them with some non-PFAS item. And I would believe that based on the brief description of the Tremco product, it probably has PFAS in it. Can you answer that question?
Jeff, if you could answer that.
Technically, I'm not aware of the PFAS content in this product.
Okay.
Jeff, I'll give you a mic.
All right.
I'm not technically aware of PFAS content at this point.
Well, it is important to know, and we have already had to deal with contamination in the Furnace Brook well sites dating back to, stuff that came out of the dry cleaners and some other sources, okay? And that goes also for the supporting materials associated with the photovoltaic elements. That applies there. I recognize that the actual photovoltaic panel itself, without its supporting systems, does not carry much in the way of PFAS. However, conduit, cabling, any materials used in cleaning and preparation and things like that can well carry it. And that's my main concern here. The other question I have is, this type of rehabilitation and the installation of photovoltaics, is there anywhere out there that has something, say, more than a 3 or 4 year history where we've actually done something like this and have some sense of how it is actually aging as we go?
Is the question specific to the roof coating and how it performs under solar panels?
The roof coating and the impacts and effects of the photovoltaics, the walkways and the like, all of those create some protection, but they also create some potential for damage.
So I can get back to the group with references on where this type of system has been installed under solar panels 10 plus years. To be honest, it's a question we're not asked very often. We haven't had any sort of issue with solar panels. This is designed to be used in a setting like this where solar panels are installed. Yeah.
Well, when the solar panel installations first began back in the days of New England Power Pool, I was working for Commonwealth Electric. I was on the Generation Reliability Committee for NEPOOL and looking into the capacity factors that are associated with the photovoltaics. While they may have, let's say a megawatt rating, the reality is the delivery is usually someplace in the neighborhood of about 30% of that
Yeah, not something I'm capable of commenting on. That's really a better
Maybe
question.
Landon could answer that question. Jeff, if you could pass the mic to Landon.
Answer to that.
Sorry, the specifics to that is not my forte, but I can tell you, as far as installation, the solars on top of the roof actually improve the roofing membrane over time because it's covered, it's protecting from the UV rays, and I haven't had any issues. I've been installing solar for 18 years. I started as an installer back in 2006, and we've had many people not choose to do roofs, and we have to go back 1 or 2 years later and decommission the system, put on a whole new roof, and then put the solar back on, and it's a very large expense. So we're just trying to put all the right numbers before everyone.
And the only other question I have is, have you coordinated with the Department of Public Works with regard to the carports that are going to go in the parking lot to make sure that the snowplows can still get in and do their job? Because we did run into an issue with the police department early on, as I recall, with their carports.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those carports that you see right there, they're usually just over about 14 feet tall on the low side. We do that all the time, but unfortunately, there's, in certain places throughout the country, there's, accidents happen, and a plow, might run into it, but I don't know how to stop that. We do clearances to prevent it. Okay. If he's going to run into the pylon, I can't fix that.
Well, actually, the question is a little more specific, would be, you've consulted with the Superintendent of Public Works with regard to what the clearances he feels he needs to do his job?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
We have.
No, I personally haven't, but we do that in our due diligence for engineering.
Okay, so that is yet to be done then, as I understand it, from what you just said.
I don't know if it's been done or not, but typically, we don't design them low from town ordinances.
That's all I have. Thank you.
And just to follow up on Mr. Carrier's question, neither the roofing company or the photovoltaic, we're not going to put anything that would harm our water system or have PFAS, so we'll monitor all of that and make sure the unit themselves is a solid-state unit. Department of Public Health has regulations that allow them to go over aquifers because they're solid state. But I appreciate Mr. Carey. He does a lot of work. He's worked hard as a former superintendent to make sure that we maintain the great water that we have. So thank you for being here, David. Question, up back.
Tina Shea, Carswell Street. When you say there's 1 to 3 years left of life on the roof, that's just the one roof, right? I thought he said that there was like 11 years left on another one.
They vary differently. So Daniel Webster, we believe, has like 1 to 3 years worth of life.
Right, but they don't all have 1 to 3. They all vary.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So we could essentially just repair the roofs on the ones that needed it.
I mean, there's always options to do all of that, sure.
Right. So, and then have any of the leaks been patched to prevent any further damage as of today?
Well, one thing that's, we didn't bring up, but one thing that's really fortunate in Marshfield is you have an on-call roofing contractor that's you guys bid out and have an on-call anytime there's a leak, they're quickly responded to and addressed. The pictures you saw are just showing you what we found in 2022 when we were doing our survey. So the
contract is, what is the contractor doing if he's not repairing these?
Well, he is. Every time there's a leak, and maybe I need to send this to Fred, but...
Is that you, Fred?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I call on the people to answer the questions just like at town meetings. So if you're through, Jeff, then I'll have Fred address this. Fred, can you address that?
Yes, I can, Michael. Yeah, we have an on-call roofing contractor. All the head custodians will report in after a rainstorm if they had leaks or not, and then we'll dispatch, create a grouping list of service calls for the on-call roofer to respond, and they do.
Okay, so how is there all that wet insulation and there's no mold?
There was a leak. The water travels through from the top membrane to the insulation. into the building, so the installation's already wet. You know, I don't understand your question, but,
My question was that there was said at town meeting that there's no mold in the buildings.
no, there's no mold.
There can't be wet insulation with no mold.
Well, it's anaerobic, there's no oxygen in there, so there's no way for mold to grow. And when we did the Furnace Brook School, that was a huge roof. We did that back in 2019, there was no mold underneath that roof.
What are your qualifications? What are your credentials?
I'll send you my resume if you want to see that.
No, I just want to know, like, are you an engineer? Are you, what are your credentials?
I'm a marine engineer.
You're a rain engineer?
Marine engineer, yes.
Okay. What is that?
What's that? I went to Mass Maritime Academy. I'm a marine engineer.
Oh, a marine engineer.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what, hold on. So how much life is left in the actual buildings that you want to put roofs on for 25 years?
There's much, decades.
Decades left in the
Decades,
buildings?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So, how many schools have air conditioning?
I'm sorry, I can't hear that well.
How many schools have air conditioning?
It varies.
Well, there are 5.
This building is fully air conditioned.
Well, sure, it's only 10 years old, but the
Right.
5 buildings that you're talking about, how many of them have air conditioning?
None of them are fully air conditioned, but the office areas are because they're open during the summer.
'Cause,
The principal's office areas.
okay, so the kids don't have air conditioning, but they'll have solar panels?
They will have solar panels, yeah.
Okay, is that solar panel gonna, like, get them air conditioning? Is that gonna, like,
You know, I don't know, I don't know what the plan is with the revenue, but
Mm-hmm.
the solar panels will generate the revenue to pay for the roofs and plus.
but not the air conditioning?
I don't know. I mean, that's something that the town has to decide.
And why do we need carports?
Carports, we actually installed them down the police station, and actually the police department likes them because they park the,
I'm not talking about the police department. I'm well aware they're parked under the carports so that they can get in and out without having snow on their vehicles.
right.
But why do we need those at the schools?
Why not have them at the schools?
The kids don't drive.
In the parking lots?
The kids? The children are driving?
The high school students are parking there,
Okay.
you know?
So the
teachers
high
are
school
parking
students
there.
can't wipe off their cars from snow?
It's a revenue generating, we get revenue from those carports.
But no air conditioning in the school for the children, but we're getting the
I
revenue.
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Let me just jump in here.
What
So,
is- oh.
to Ms., so to address your, so if we do the photovoltaics generate revenue. And you're right, we can take a look at air conditioning. We started air conditioning the Furnace Brook Middle School, doing, how many wings do we do, Fred? Fred, how many wings do we air condition at the Furnace Brook?
At
Just
least
the
20
offices.
classrooms, section F, second floor, we did that.
Just the offices.
No.
Oh.
Furnace Brook, no, Furnace Brook, we
I
actually
just
did.
asked you that.
You see, what's that?
I just asked you that.
But it's not, you're talking about complete AC. We're not complete AC yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we did 25 classrooms on the second floor, section F,
Mm-hmm.
at Furnace Brook.
And that's a good point, and that's something that the revenue, once the roofs are paid for, that's something that revenue could go towards, if that's something town meeting wants to support using that money for.
So what is the money earmarked for then?
Right now, any money that's generated goes into a special revenue account by the Department of Revenue, and then, depending on what needs to be done, that would augment the general fund budget. The town meeting votes annually.
So what is the cost difference between just fixing the roofs and restructuring the roof to be able to accept the panels?
There's no structural stuff. The roofs are all designed to carry that weight load. We had an engineer take a look at that prior. Now, we're going through that process all over again. You heard at the beginning, we're bringing in an engineer to begin the next RFP process. That engineer will then check that, but all of the roofs in New England are designed to hold snow and to have weight bearing, because the flat roofs hold the utility portions. If you look at a lot of our roofs, the air handling systems are up there, refrigeration stuff is up there.
Right, but I think that you're kind of contradicting yourself, because we need the walkways, we need to pay for walkways because the roofs are not handling what's going on top of them.
No, the walkway is only going on one roof. The Furnace Brook already has a walkway that was part of the total rebuild of the Furnace Brook in 2019, Fred?
That's correct.
2019.
And
Marsh-
the walkways are actually protecting the membrane.
Right,
protecting
thank
the
you.
roof. Yep.
The membrane up here would go on Marshfield High School roof. The Marshfield High School roof has a very soft walkway area. This would make it much more durable, because all of the utilities, the bulk of the utilities are up there, which require servicing,
We want something robust.
and the walkway will allow people to walk. It's a very hard surface. It's made out of fiberglass, and it will add an extra layer of protection in the areas where people are constantly walking, putting their toolboxes down and doing repairs.
Okay, but these have to be shoveled as well.
Only if there's a lot of snow. If the last 3 or 4 winters were any indication, probably not. The last time that roofs were required to be shoveled was back in 2015.
And so we're putting the walkways for not for all the times that we don't need to shovel? I don't understand.
The walkways, ma'am, I've explained, the walkways are for people to come in and service the utilities that are up there. But the walkways are also designed to be shoveled. So those are the areas that would be shoveled, and people could stand on the walkways to shovel the other areas of the roof if it needed to be.
The chemical that you're using, you said that it's odorless, but that
Yes,
doesn't.
Jeff said it was odorless.
Right, but that doesn't mean harmless, right?
Jeff, do you want to address the toxicity of your chemicals?
Well, the waterproofing system that's being installed as a restoration material is zero odor. It's designed for installation, like I said, in healthcare settings, school settings, occupied buildings. I mean, I wouldn't drink it. It's part of what's used for this kind of application. I don't know of any toxicity issues. I've been doing this a long time. Never
Does
had
it have a hazard thing on the back?
No, it doesn't. It's not a red label material, no. No,
But you don't know.
I do know. It's
You
not
don't know if it's toxic.
I said I'm not aware that, I've never had anybody point out a toxicity issue with what we call AlphaGuard, no.
Okay, but odorless doesn't mean harmless.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
I wouldn't drink it.
And just for the record, we're not Ford. I think that we need to be mindful that this is like community's money that you're spending, not Ford. I'm not talking to you. So we're not Ford. And I think that a conservative approach to repairing these buildings is definitely a way to go when you're spending everybody else's money. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, up back.
Hi, am I on?
Yes. If you could state your name and address, please.
Red Giovanucci, 15 Preston Terrace.
Hey, Red.
Hi, how are you? I think some of my questions, are you sure I'm on?
If you could just talk a little closer to the mic.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I think some of my questions might have been answered already, but my concern was I was wondering about the structure of the school, and I think Fred said that, because all those schools, my God, I'm 63, and every single school, I think, except for Governor Winslow, was there when I was, going to South River as a little kid. And I was just wondering if those aren't up to code or they're crumbling somewhere underneath. I haven't been in an elementary school in a long time myself, but to put all this expensive equipment on and to repair roofs, to hold all this stuff. You just said, Mike, that the loads are fine for every roof. You had those checked, but then why in 2015 were they so afraid of 3 feet of snow and had a bunch of guys go up and shovel and ruined a brand new roof?
Sure, I
And
can answer that for you.
Okay.
In 2015, if you go on the town website, I do have the news stories up there. There were a number of school roofs around surrounding communities that the roofs collapsed. And Maya, who was our insurance agent, reached out to the town and requested all of the cities and towns that they insured at that time that they shovel the roof. I think we had like, I don't know, at least 2 feet of snow on the roofs at that time.
And does the photovoltaic guy down there, Landon, and the other guy, do they work together all the time?
No.
No, you're just two separate entities? Yes. Okay. And how do you get the snow off of the solar panels?
So,
There's like, how many total do we have? Like 10,000 going in?
yeah, probably close to that. No, we don't shovel off the snow on the solar panels. The snow will actually melt faster than normal with the solar panels, so it'll heat up, generate a little bit of heat.
So all the water's gonna go on the roof?
Yep, and into the drains. Like a normal, like a rain day.
Okay. Huh. I don't know, it just seems like a lot of load on top of a lot of old schools, but, you know, I hope everybody is doing their homework about that, because it just seems like a lot of electricity on top of all our little kids. I don't know why we couldn't just why don't we use that MBTA area and put all the solar panels over there instead? Wouldn't we create a bunch more electricity that way? I don't know, but I appreciate everybody doing their work. I do. We're just concerned that, a lot of us are concerned that, yes, of course, we need to fix all the roofs for all the kids in our community, but the solar panels is kind of a big turnoff for a lot of people for many, many reasons. And, you know, from this side you hear dangers, from this side, oh, they're safe. So there's something in between, and I just think there needs to be a little more, you know, research or whatever going on. But it feels like you guys you're talking like it's already in motion. It's already a done deal.
Well, I mean, if I can just add something.
Yeah.
The Next Grid, the solar company, has hired engineers to validate that the roofs can handle the additional weight of the solar panels and the snow and all that stuff.
Yep.
We actually hired independent of their engineers, Gale Associates, to come in and do an independent review of some of their structural engineers' assumptions. We actually did a live load test to validate that their assumptions were correct and everything was fine. So all with that, when they go to get a permit, they're going to actually have affidavits from their structural engineers to validate, put their stamp and their signature that everything is kosher as far as structural goes.
Is that information available to the public or not?
Yeah.
Do they need to go to you, to town hall?
Yeah, go through me. I mean, go through. I think there's got to be a mechanism to go. I don't know if you want
We'll get it up we have a lot of information up there, but Red, we'll get that up. We have a section on the town website with information, and we'll add that in there.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next.
Hi, Sally Oberg, Autumn Lane. I guess I have a question about carports. Why do we need the carports, and how much are they, you know, where exactly are they all going to go? Are they going to all the schools, or did I miss that?
They're not going to all the schools. I do know they're going to Furnace Brook. Landon, do you know where the other places out of the carports are going?
Not off the top of my head. If we can scroll back through the
Rob, can we scroll back
right.
through?
Oh, if you go back, yeah. So there's 2 right there. Then this school. So I think 2 out of the 5 schools.
How many people, I mean, how many cars are going to be able to go under these? Is it just for teachers, or do they think like the high school, certainly they can't have enough carports for all the kids?
Well, the carports on Furnace Brook, so no spaces, you know, maybe 1 or 2 spaces in totality, but it will go right on the parking lot at Furnace Brook as you were coming in. Say you were coming in from 139, that's where the high school kids park. They park there. It's the same amount of parking spaces will still be under them, but they're a good way to generate, the photovoltaics generate revenue if they're there. And they create green electricity.
How much do they cost to put them up?
There's no cost to the town. There is no cost to the town. I want to be perfectly clear.
The carports don't cost anything.
Well, they cost they cost the next grid, but there's no cost to the town. We lease the space, and then they pay us for the lease, and that's how we generate the revenue.
All right, so when
Yeah.
we saw all the rent thing, all the things that say rent,
Yes.
now, how much does that come to a year that we're spending to rent all these?
We're not spending anything. That's the rent that they're paying the town.
Oh,
So-
they're paying the town.
That is correct. Yep, no, absolutely. These are good questions. So approximately, if all the schools are done, the dog park, the fields, airport and some other places, it's around approximately $1.9 to $2 million per year. It's usually it's a 20-year contract, so it's the potential to generate about $40 million, about $2 million a year, that the residential taxpayer doesn't have to dip into their pockets and put into the
I
town.
was looking at it the backwards.
Yep, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Next, I think this young lady, yep.
Jill Kimmett, Ocean Street. So I just want to understand, you're only removing the wet insulation from the high school
I will let Jeff answer that.
and not from the other schools?
No, all of the schools get the wet insulation material removed.
Somebody had spoke earlier and said that they were only removing it from the high school, so I wanted to be clear that it was all being removed.
It all has to be removed before we put the coating down.
Okay, so do the walkways that you're putting on the roof, do they have siding? Are they enclosed, or are they just a walkway?
They're just a walkway that rests on the membrane.
Okay.
These systems sit
So
down.
the reason why you have to install these is to prevent people from dropping things on the roof, X, Y, and Z. How does that prevent anyone from dropping anything on the roof? It's just going to bounce off that and hit part of the roof that is not covered by that.
So most of the protection that's being offered by these walkways is for probably 2 or 3 primary reasons. One is, as everybody said, there's these large rooftop air handlers, big air conditioning.
I understand why they're being put on there, but I
So-
want to explain to you the reason why that they're not going to protect the roof, because they don't prevent anyone from dropping it and it bouncing to another part of the roof that's not protected.
Well, the actual impact, dropping anything on this isn't going to bother anything.
Well, that's what they say that these holes were from originally.
Originally, there weren't good walkways on the roof. That's what we're doing, is we're putting good walkways up here so that as things need to be moved across the roof, if you have a large piece of equipment or a filter or something that has to be pulled, they can do this on the walkway system without pulling it along on the surface of the
You're
roof.
not really answering the question that I'm asking. You're talking
sorry.
about something else. I'm talking about somebody
something?
dropping something and it damaging the roof.
The-
Because that's what they've said in previous town meetings, that that's why we have to have this.
I'm sorry. Well, anything that's dropped on the walkways doesn't pose a problem to the roof.
Okay.
Dropping something on the roof is where the issue might come. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did.
Do you have another question?
Yep, I'm just reading my notes. Give me 1 second, please.
Sure.
So the patches that you've showed in your description, were they covered, were they sealed, or have they just been sitting there for 2 years?
No. So after the moisture survey testing was done, our group came up, and it was very clear to see, because these areas are marked out on the roof now in paint. We were able to find holes and punctures and other things in those areas. Those were all repaired in 2022.
So they were
and
repaired?
They were repaired. The holes were
Okay.
repaired.
Now, with this Tremco ceiling, when you talk about it being under warranty, is the whole roof under warranty or just where you're rehabilitating and sealing?
So almost any roof area that's getting solar panels, that whole area is the whole roof, not just the footprint of the solar, but the whole roof is being treated with this material. There are a few areas that aren't getting any
So
solar.
is the whole roof under warranty?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
For 25 years.
Yes. I want to be clear. There are some areas, isolated areas, I described
That are
one at Winds.
not getting the treatment.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So those areas are not getting solar panels, they're not targeted for an upgrade. But all the areas that have any solar panels on them at all are being restored.
So now the part that's not getting treated, is that somewhere in Daniel Webster School District?
Without looking at I think there's one small area where wet insulation is simply being removed. But there's some discussion about perhaps coating those areas as we go. We haven't
Because
really
that
gotten there.
building's been since 1917. So to put a roof on it that's going to last 25 years when the building's already 100-something years old.
The Daniel Webster School?
Yeah.
It's not 117 years old. I think the Daniel Webster School was, Fred,
Said
do you know when? It was
1917
60s?
when I just looked it
Yeah,
up.
that was in the 60s.
It was in the 60s?
Yes.
Well, the
Most
Googles.
of that.
What was that? Okay, so now who's responsible for replacing and paying for the replacement of the solar panels when they're broken?
The photovoltaic company, NextGrid.
So they pay for all of the ones that need to be replaced throughout the 25 years that it's on there?
For the 20 years of the thing, yes, because it behooves them. They make money, we make money. They're not making money, we don't make money.
So now, in your experience with these solar grids, what type of like wind mile per hour can they handle? Because we have a lot of wind storms as opposed to snowstorms.
It varies on the racking, but we do wind tunnel tests and engineering for all specific areas that we put our solars on. So we'll look at the area, we'll do an engineer study, find what the wind tunnel test is, and we'll make sure we have the racking and the ballast to accommodate for the winds.
How come this hasn't already been done?
It's like you said, we're still going through design stages, and we need to get.
Nothing's been finalized yet.
Okay, but don't you have like other
I
examples
can't
of
give you
miles
the
per
specific
hour?
numbers, but we do, I mean, all systems are built to withstand the winds wherever they're installed.
Because if they fall off or anything like that and then they damage the roof, what's going to happen?
Then we fix both.
You're responsible for both?
Yeah.
And with the leak that we have had in the high school already with all the wet insulation, why was the insurance company not responsible for that?
That I don't know.
Because that's what your insurance is for when you put claims in, so why was that not done?
All I know is in that particular year, they did pay a claim at the Martinson School, and they paid a claim at the South River School,
But not the high school?
not the high school.
And you are removing all the wet insulation in all the schools?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Lakatos, 184 Elm Street. I have probably four things I have questions about. First is my concern about the town needing to replace all the school roofs or repair all the school roofs at the same time when it's not necessary for us to do that at this time. We could do it by, 3 years from now, 5 years from now in the other school. So we're sort of being forced into this because of the contract with the solar panel company. So that's a little bit of an issue.
I'll interrupt there. So there is no contract that we have to do all the roofs at the same time. However, it's cheaper to do the roofs in 2000. Each year, there's a cost associated. Roof costs go up, so it does make sense. But when we bid it out, we'll bid it out as one job, and then we'll bid it out as alternatives. So we'll prioritize, and then we'll see what's the best deal.
Yeah, but if some of the roofs still have 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, like the high school, 10 years is half the life of what you're asking for. So I guess I'd have to be convinced of the economy of that. That seems a little odd to me.
Except the high school, we're fixing the leaks. this is not being, the high school here is not being treated with the Tremco.
Oh, okay.
Only
So
before- only before-
so the high school roof will be a moderate cost improvement?
That is correct. We're
And
gonna,
about what? I mean, what are the numbers that we're looking at?
can we pull that back up?
I
Do you
have it
that,
right
Jeff?
here, Michael.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Fred's gonna get it for us.
The high school is $640,000, which includes $350,000 of the walkways, and if we did do the option of coating the high school, it'd be $3 million. We felt that that was not
Okay.
the way to go.
That's what I thought it was, I thought the number was even higher than that, and so, okay, so it's a reasonable number. I am totally distrustful of photovoltaics being put on flat roofs. I just see that as a complete mistake. I've had solar panels on my roof. They leaked in 5 years. The attachments, where it was attached to the roof, I got water inside the house. It cost $10,000 of damage, and that was a 1,400 square foot house. I can't understand the logic at all of all those penetrating structures, all those fasteners, not being totally a potential of leakage. And I mean, when we've already had just a few structures on the roof that obviously there was leakage around them, anything that penetrates the roof structure is a potential source, and especially a 25-year item. I need some convincing on that.
Sure.
I mean, just the sheer movement of 50,000 fasteners on one roof seems ridiculous.
Sure, let me let Landon address that.
Yeah, so the majority of these roofs, they're going to be 100% ballasted, so we won't have any penetrations in the majority of the solar footprint. The ones that have any slope to it, those are the ones that will have mechanical attachments, but predominantly we shouldn't have any penetrations through the roofs. And as far as, moving, we put slip sheets between the racking and the roofing membrane to take up that friction and not go through the roof.
Okay, I'm sorry. Because in the description of this, I've heard the word penetration of fasteners to attach the roof. So are you using a ballast system to attach these?
The majority of them is ballasted, yes.
Oh, okay. That was
Some
something
will
that was
be-
never mentioned. Okay.
Yes, some will be penetrated on the more sloped roofs.
Okay. I mean, and that's where I don't understand how you can, I mean, are you going to warranty any leakage from any of those attachments for the 25 years? Is that the agreement?
Yeah, that's part of the solar. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then the third question was about snow removal. So we've had snow that was considerable less than 10 years ago. There's no reason to not expect that that's going to happen again. How do we clear these roofs? I mean, the high school, which was brand new, had a severe snow. It was declared that the load was too large, that we had to remove the snow. That's going to happen again, obviously. And so how do you remove the snow with the panels on the roof safely? I mean, on a completely flat roof, they damaged the roof in the process, and it was not insured. Somehow, whoever was contracted to do the job didn't have insurance to cover the damage by their workers, or it was never found out. So what happens when we get a 3-foot snowfall within the next 10 years on 5 or 6 of our properties? How do you clean that snow off with all that stuff and not have any damage?
Sure, we'll get, Fred, do you want to address that?
I will. The on-call roofing contractor has a requirement to assist us in snow removal if required. They're actually roofers. We'll go up there and actually remove the snow.
Yeah, they did that once before, and it cost us $400,000 in repairs and damage
It
on a
wasn't
flat
that-
roof, and that was a simple flat roof. Here we've got all these attached, how do you clear the snow around the photovoltaics, safely?
But just to be clear, the company that we have, Aqua Barriers, was not the company that shoveled the roof in 2015.
So what? You know,
This is what they do. Unfortunately, I'm trying to be honest with you. This is what Aqua Barriers does. It's one of the services they provide, that they have the right equipment to be able to shovel the roofs.
So if they damage the roofs in the process of shoveling, are we still insured?
That's correct, because they carry insurance. We don't have anyone do work that doesn't carry insurance.
Well, so from now on, we don't? I mean, what happened with the insurance that should have been with the shovelers on that, with that situation?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question, because I
Okay.
wasn't, I'm being honest, I wasn't
Yeah.
here in 15. As you know, I started in 2017.
Okay.
But I can tell you, there isn't anyone doing work in any of our buildings if they're not licensed, if they're not insured, et cetera.
Okay. And will the photovoltaic company, what we have to shovel more often because the photovoltaics are on the roof, both for, if there's 3 feet of snow covering the photovoltaics, will you demand that you want people on the roof to have it cleared, whether it's you paying for it or not, in that situation? I mean,
We don't shovel the roofs for energy production during the
Okay.
winter.
oh, okay. All right.
And just to follow up,
Yeah.
the unit itself, once the sun's out, that melts very quickly.
Yeah, it's sort of assumed, but yeah. And there's enough, I mean, the drain, you talked about a drainage system, so there's an additional drainage system to what would normally exist on the roof right now?
No, I was just saying that the snow on the panels will melt off and then just run off from the existing, how the roof is sloped, or if there's a drainage system in there.
Okay, and we're sure that the drainage system can handle that volume of water?
They
Because
do.
I've had situations, again, near that, maybe 5 years before our blizzard, we also had a cold snap that lots of people with flat roofs ran into a problem where stuff melted and then refroze, and all the scuppers held water, and the water built up on the roof, both frozen and liquid, and collapsed incredible amounts of roofs and caused unbelievable damage. The potential of having all this stuff on the roof adds weight to the roofs, so now do the roofs have to be, shoveled off more often because we have 10,000 pounds of extra weight on the roof, or whatever that is? Do we
I'm
know
I'm
anything?
not aware of anything, Landon, are you aware of any?
No, that'd be up to the insurance if they require more frequent shovelings.
Because that's, with the high school roof, it was required with the snow. Well, is it going to be required more often because now we've added weight to the roof? I would think you'd have to.
Just,
That the insurance company requires us to shovel the snow if it's only 2 feet deep now, because we've got the extra weight burden of those photovoltaics.
only in 2015 did they require, and only because, not because the roofs were under-engineered. All school roofs and all commercial building roofs and private homes are made to withstand a significant amount of snow weight because we're in New England. But the Maya, who represents a majority of city and towns, required it because they had a half a dozen that I'm aware of on the South Shore that roofs collapsed. And we have, like I said, those articles from back in 2015 up on the town website.
I know, but but now we're adding the weight of the photovoltaics to the roof, so there's more weight on the roof now than there was. There's more potential of damage from heavy snow because we've already added to the weight of the roofs. They weren't originally designed for that.
But the engineers have tested them, as you heard.
Yeah.
They've been tested and certified by licensed engineers.
Okay. And then just one more question. End-of-life safe removal of the photovoltaics. How do you remove these things in 25 years that don't cost us brand-new roofs?
The photovoltaic next grid is, if we chose not to renew, then they would have to remove them, and they take them off at their cost. And during the installation and during when they're taken out, we'll bring in a third-party company, something Fred and I used when we built the new police station, the new DPW, and the senior center. Along with our required owner project manager, we brought in Colliers, right? Fred, was that the company?
Yeah, commissioning agent.
Commissioning agent to monitor the situation on our behalf.
Okay. All right. And we think that I understand the high school, it's brand new, it's going to last 25 years. These other schools, we expect them to be okay 25 years from now without, because I kept on hearing rumblings of we're going to rebuild the middle and grade schools instead. So now we're going to keep them?
There's no
Or
plan
maybe that's
to-
not true.
The Furnace Brook we just spent almost $7 million on their roof. So I know that will be here for at least 25 more years. The other schools, I mean, the South River is probably the oldest school. I'm not aware of any plans. There's nothing in the 5-year capital plan to replace any of our schools.
Oh, okay. Or no discussion of that?
Nope.
That's not part of the plan?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you, sir. Yes?
Michael Waddell, Bowles Road, Marshfield. I looked at the town website and saw the page with the solar program outlined. There's a lot of good links there, so thank you for putting that together. In today's presentation, I didn't see talk of some of the items that I'd seen on the chart that showed the cost benefit. For example, there was an airport installation and a landfill installation. Has anything changed since that cost-benefit chart was put up on the website?
No, those are the same figures. We didn't address those because those have nothing to do with the roof, but as far as the photovoltaics, the cap landfill, that would be a big revenue generator. You saw from that generates about $1.1 million annually.
Yes, I think for today's presentation, the roof is intertwined with the solar, but what I think would be helpful going forward is if you led with the cost benefit, because I think there seems to be some confusion about whether this is costing the town or whether there's a benefit to the town. For example, someone asked about carports and why we should pay for carports. So it doesn't seem that people are fully aware that this is a net benefit to the town. It's not a net cost. So even without roofing figures being presented, if you could show that on each of these roofs, we're putting money in the bank, that may help people understand.
Just to address that, if I'll jump in and address that, you're 100% correct. So with all of the stuff you mentioned, including the airport, the fields, the dog park, and a few other places that would be adding photovoltaics, that would generate about a little over $2 million per year for 20 years, which is about $40 million. And you're 100% correct, there is no cost. The photovoltaics, there's no cost to the town. NextGrid incurs those costs of insulation, taking it down, servicing, etc. So you factor in the cost of the roof. And the original article, we are going out to bid on a new, beginning the whole process all over again. But the original was about 3.2 million with 300,000 contingency, about 3.5 million. So you subtract that from the 40 million. It's a just round math, about a 5-year payback.
So in 5 years, all the benefit accrues to the town, all the risk goes to the panel installer, and we're coming out ahead. And then the big question is going to be, how do we spend all this money? Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
And we heard tonight there were some people that would like to see some of it spent on air conditioning.
Sounds like air conditioning should be in the mix there.
Yep, definitely.
So basically then the chart that's on the town website now, it looks like it's sort of an Excel spreadsheet printed out. It's got some handwritten annotations on it. That chart is current, is that?
Yes, the one that's labeled revenue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So just a tip, show that first next time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
Tina Shea, Careswell Street. So you say that it's green electricity. What does that mean?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I couldn't
What
hear
does
you.
green electricity mean?
Well, you're generating, instead of a coal-burning power plant generating electricity, you're generating it through the sun.
Okay. So, but where do the panels come from, and what are they made of?
Landon, do you want to get into that?
I don't know which panels we're using specifically, so I can't tell where they're coming from, but they're made of silicon.
But just silicon. So, like, I could put my spatula on the roof, and it could.
No, like, no,
solar panels?
no, silicon like sand, like.
Okay. So, are they non-toxic?
Yes, when they're fully formed.
Fully formed, but are there chemicals, toxic chemicals, that are used to make
If
them?
you, if you broke them down
Uh-huh.
into each
And
element.
so have there been any health studies done on solar panels being over the heads of children for, I don't know, is it like 60,000 hours that they're in school?
I haven't seen anything, and I've installed these all over the country in schools.
You haven't seen any. Have there been any done?
I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Okay.
And these are actually outside, so they're on the roof of the building, and the roof, Fred, how thick is the roof? At least a foot.
What does that have to do with it? You don't even know what they're made of. You don't have any
Well, you're
idea
saying
what
about the
they're doing.
chemicals
If
getting
there's
in.
been no studies done,
I didn't say there were no studies done, I'm sure, because these.
but he said he
these were
hasn't
approved.
seen any. But
Well, he
it
hasn't
doesn't
seen
matter
any.
how thick or thin the roof is. If there's no study done, there's no study done.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how thick the roof is, right?
I'm not going to agree, because I know that there's studies done, and they're putting these up, and they've been approved.
There's
You know.
studies done for green electricity on the back end, but what about the front end when they're being manufactured and made?
On the unit itself.
Right,
Well,
and then
they
what
have to be
happens to
safe.
those units, and where do they go? To the landfill?
When they end of
When they're
life?
done, right.
Do you know where they go
When they're
at
done,
end of life?
they get recycled.
The toxic chemicals get recycled?
I never
never
said
said they
toxic.
were
I
toxic
said
chemicals.
when they get broken down to their elements, they get recycled.
Right, you said, but
Because
when
you have
they're all
metal, you
put
have
together, when
silicon,
they're
you
all
have
put,
copper, you have tin, you have all these elements that make the solar panels.
right, but when they're all put together, they're not toxic, so now you're gonna break them apart?
Well, it's the same thing as like your microwave in your house. I would
I don't
consider
have a
that
microwave
toxic.
in my house.
Well,
But you're talking
Maybe a
about, you're
refrigerator?
talking about like all this metal and chemicals over the roofs of children for 60,000 hours, that's 12 years.
I wouldn't call it chemicals.
You wouldn't, you just told me that they were chemicals.
Well, so is asphalt shingles.
Okay,
Do you have that on your roof?
I do have that on my roof. I also had solar panels taken off of my roof when I bought the house because I couldn't find any health studies, right? Nobody knows, right?
Sure.
Ma'am,
And
if you
said that there was heat generated by these panels, yes? That's what melts the snow off of the
No, it's like
panel?
it's like a greenhouse. It's just a greenhouse effect. It warms up the panel. It's like same thing as your car. Your car windshield heats off faster than the rest of your car.
Right, and then so the snow comes off of the roof of your car, and because it's hot, and then
Right.
when you stop and park, so when the snow falls off of the solar panel and hits the freezing roof, then it's just going to be like more frozen ice.
Well, right, but I mean, these panels, you're talking the high side is here, so it's just going to slide about 2 feet.
So
if
there'll
that.
be like rows of ice that then they're going to have to like take then they're going to have to shovel those off right
Not-
between the panels. They're
No.
going to have to shovel them off between the panels.
No, it just stays there.
It just stays there. Okay, but he said that there was special equipment right? Didn't you say that there was special equipment to remove them between the
I
panels?
didn't say special equipment, I said that we have Aqua Barriers, who's our on-call roof. They're licensed to shovel, and they
No,
have
you said
the-
they had their special
They have
equipment.
proper equipment,
Pro-
right.
Okay, what is
Yeah.
the proper equipment?
I would assume some type of plastic shovel or something that's not gonna pierce the roof.
Plastic doesn't pierce rubber?
I have no idea, ma'am. I'm just telling you that they're licensed to do that, so they're trained to do that.
Well, I get that.
I don't do it, so I don't know.
I'm gonna go with plastic can puncture
thank you.
rubber. Yeah, but you don't know that. You're just saying that?
I don't know if.
Right. So, but why are you giving
anything
answers
can
that you
pierce-
don't know?
Anything, excuse me, anything can pierce a roof.
Right.
We're
Thank you,
taking
that's
steps-
exactly my point.
Well, we're taking steps to minimize the impact to the roof.
So I'd like to see some health studies, I guess, if you're putting.
I was
the-
going to tell you, if you email me,
Mm-hmm.
I will send you some information. I will get it, and I was happy to share it with you.
My
and I'll
children
put it
don't
up
go
on
to the
our
school.
website.
I just want to put that out there. My children don't go to the schools.
But I'm
So
happy to get- I'm happy to get you the
considering for
info.
the children of the town, not my own. Thank you.
Thank you. You spoke, ma'am. Let me go to Mr. Gibson, and then we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. Don Gibson, 815 Union Street. Your presentation has been stressing the benefit to the town of Marshfield if this project goes forward and the solar panels are installed and the revenue that's going to be realized by the town if we lease the space to allow them to be installed. I would like some clarification that this project, at least it's in the initial phases, this power agreement was approved pursuant to a contract and previous votes of town meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the process began with a PPA agreement back in 2019. The original PPA power purchase agreement was then amended, Amendment 1 and Amendment 2, which then allowed to go into those additional roofs, the fields, the dog park, the additional items. NextGrid was selected through an RFP process. There were 7 companies at that time: Citizen Energy, SCA, ECA, Amoresco, the present company that we have now, and one other company. And they were selected by the Energy Committee, made a recommendation to the Select Board at that time, and then the Select Board voted to award the contract.
Right, so there is an existing contract governing this particular project, am I correct?
Not a contract per se, but the vendor that was going to produce the NextGrid was the selected vendor because their presentation generated, they were very generous in sharing through lease payments. They had the one that calculated the $20 to $21 million of net present value, which yielded out to the $40 million.
Right. Well, if the revenue that we're going to realize from allowing our spaces to be leased and these panels being installed is the carrot, what is the stick? If the town at a subsequent town meeting refuses to go forward with this project, is there financial or legal liability to the town that the vendor could assert? And if so, has anyone calculated the amount of damages that the town would be liable for not fulfilling the contract?
There isn't a, like I said, there isn't a signed contract. Tremco. NextGrid is the vendor, but yes, they've invested a lot of time and money over the last 5 years working with the town to develop the layout and the type of systems that are going to be required. They've never said anything to us. You know, I suppose the first and foremost, I think, Mr. Gibson, I mentioned at the very beginning, is getting the roofs fixed, okay? So we've got to fix the high school roof. We have to fix the high school roof, and we've got to address Daniel Webster. You know, a couple of the other roofs have slightly longer, but we want to get those roofs into good shape. The restoration project would add 25 years. Right now, the town meeting doesn't have to vote because they already voted 4 other times, so the process is already in motion.
Right, I'm not talking about repairing the roofs so much as the photovoltaic component of,
That's already in progress.
all right.
Because town meeting voted, I don't have the dates in front of me, but if you look at the site that I have set up, there are the 4 town meetings. The town meeting voted on those various projects.
I understand that. All I'm trying to find out is if Marshfield, by a vote of another town meeting, does not allow this process to continue going forward, is there some liability to the town? And has anyone bothered to calculate what that would be in terms of a dollar amount?
I don't know, and I'm not going to speculate because I'm not an attorney, but I will ask town council your question.
All right, and I think that would be important information for the town meeting to know at the next time that this is called upon to either approve, continue going forward, or to rethink whether or not this is a beneficial project.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
So Jillian Kimmett, Ocean Street. I'd like to make a suggestion to everybody that's voting yes on this panel to do the solar panels on the children's schools. Go walk by the fairgrounds where there's a field of solar panels and stand there for 2 hours, an hour, as long as you can handle it, because that's going to be on the roof of the schools with hundreds of kids in it for 8 hours a day, 180 days a year. Stand by that field and tell me you don't feel, funny that you use the term, in a microwave, because that's exactly how you feel. You can see the waves in the air. It's not made up, it's really there. Tune yourself in, because it's literally affecting us all, and you're putting it on the children's schools. I feel like this whole project is being really rushed, and you want to have this all go quick, seal the roofs with the Tremco, because you want to have this go together. We as a town want it separate. The roofs need to be fixed, the solar panels need to be separated from this whole thing. We don't want the solar panels on our children. Secondly, you've said before, Mike, that there is a buyout for this contract with them.
No, we've never talked about a buyout.
You've said that before at another town meeting,
nope.
that there is a buyout for this contract if we
No,
decide
I can
not
tell
to
you, I
go
never
through
said
with
that.
it.
But no one's rushing this process. We're going out to bid, so the soonest work would start would probably be late spring of '25. So there's more than ample time. And town meeting will have an opportunity to vote, because we would go to the December 16th town meeting, and then we would more than likely have to go back potentially to the annual and the special that takes place in the spring.
So you've never once stated that there's a buyout at the end of this if you choose not to go through with the solar panels?
That is correct.
That is an absolute lie.
Okay, thank you. Last person at the mic.
Mike, I have a question too.
Okay, go ahead. Eric, you go first.
Joe can go.
Huh?
You want to go first, Joe?
I can't understand.
You want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. Whew. Picking up on the previous speaker with regards to dollar amounts and costs, how do we know that those dollars are the best deal we can get? How do we know that those apparent revenues that you're projecting at a roughly $2 million a year, most of which comes from the Clay Pit Road landfill project, how do we know those are the best dollar amounts we can get, the best deal for the town and the taxpayer? How do we know that?
Because we went out to bid on that, and 7 companies sent in RFP proposals, and Tremco was the most generous at guaranteeing $21 million.
And let's get some nomenclature clear. Tremco, is Tremco a
Not
company?
Tremco, pardon me. Thank you, Joe. Next Grid.
Okay, because just as a quick aside, because this set of proposals that you posted on the town hall website for the different schools, I see terms like Tremco, Aqua Barrier. Some of the things refer to Tremco like it's a company, like Tremco will check, et cetera. So as far as the roofs now having to go out to bid, this set of proposals that you presented to us before and is now posted on the town hall website, and it no longer applies, right?
That is correct, because
So
we're
this is-
beginning a whole new process.
That's
correct.
trash, okay, trash. So again, you said you did an RFP, you got 7 responses, and from that you think these are the best numbers. But when you did the RFP, did it include all the schools and carports and everything else?
Those came in Amendment 1 and Amendment 2
Okay.
to the original power purchase agreement.
So, the original agreement was for the Clay Pit Road Solar Panels project.
That is correct,
That's
at 1.1 million worth of
And
revenue.
it did not include schools, carports, dog park, police station, or any other buildings in town, correct?
That's correct.
So how is that legal? We just discovered that the procurement process with regards to the school roofs was apparently done incorrectly, and you put out a press release saying, nope, we've got to go back and get a new bids on all the roofing projects. So how is it that a company bidding on one project, the Clay Pit Road project, now gets to do all these schools and carports because in the town meeting article, and I know the answer, because the town meeting article that we voted on specified clearly we were voting on a Clay Pit Road solar installation. And it did say that we were authorizing amendments to be made. Any reasonable person would assume you were talking about amendments to the Clay Pit Road project documentation, which you then interpreted to mean that you could go and write amendments, which then added all these other projects, Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. Now, for you to
just for
say
clarification,
that an
Mr.
amendment means adding dozens and dozens, all kinds of projects all over town when we only voted on the Clay Pit Road project, that's a real stretch. And that will be challenged, I assure you. Any judge will throw that PPA agreement out because you did what you call an amendment was a vast expansion beyond the scope of the article and beyond the voters' authorization. That's illegal. I'm guaranteeing you it's illegal.
Well, first of all, I didn't draft the amendments. The amendments were drafted by lawyers, and they were reviewed by town council.
Tell that to the judge is all I have to say. Now, the other thing I have to say is some specific things. On the presentation that was given, you had 2 different comparisons, like the cost of doing roofs over completely and the cost of doing the roofs according to the proposed $3.5 million project. I don't know why, mostly as a comment I have to say, I don't know why you put the cost of doing roofs over completely when it's obviously not necessary, because as was shown, the damaged areas on these roofs, or the areas of the roofs that really need work, are sometimes like 1.7% or 1.5%. They're very tiny. So I think that chart that you put up, that comparison chart, the cost comparison, roof restoration versus full-scale roof replacement, again, trash, totally misleading propaganda. Next thing, on the specifics. On the items that are posted on the town hall website, you recently put up, just I guess in the last few days, something that was the minutes of the May 11th school committee meeting. And we were told that the school committee voted on and that the town school district superintendent signed off on all these roof panel installations. I've still yet to see any information that verifies that. The May 11th school committee meeting minutes that were posted on the website for information do not mention anything about solar panels. The May 11th was
If you check, there was a 5-0 vote by the school committee at that time to approve the photovoltaic.
Where? On the May 11th meeting?
May 11th of 2021, I think.
Well, I printed out a copy of the minutes that you put on the town hall website for this project. I printed them out. Here it is right here, May 11, 2021, Marshfield Public Schools. This is off of the website that you posted. And I'm looking, where does it say 5-0 to approve solar panels? I see a motion by Mrs. Campbell to approve the minutes of April 6. That was a 5-0 vote. Another vote to approve minutes was 3-0-2. Another executive session minutes approval was 4-0-1.
If you look at page 4, you'll see that a motion, Mrs. Campbell moved to support the solar panel project. Ms. Boyd seconded. It was a 5-0 vote to support.
Please
It's on
check,
page
please
4.
check the minutes as posted, because I
Okay.
can't find it.
But it's on page 4. Thank you.
The next thing is with regards to materials. We were told that they have no odor. Well, they're liquid when you go to apply them out of a bucket, and then they solidify. That means there's a vehicle. You know what a vehicle is. It's what holds the material. And sometimes it's a petroleum distillate, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's water. Are we being told this is a latex product, which means it's a water vehicle? Could somebody answer that?
Jeff, can you answer that question for Mr. Pasevich?
The AlphaGuard coating system is a moisture-curing urethane. It's got a catalyst.
It's a moisture-curing urethane.
Correct.
Okay, so what is do you have an MSDS for this project?
We could
Product?
certainly, we could share all that with
Yeah, could you
whoever
please,
wants
an
it.
MSDS?
Absolutely.
And for people who don't know, it's a material safety data sheet. It includes chemical composition information. And that goes to the concerns raised by Mr. Carrier and by some of the other women here. Also, we were told that the panels melt snow faster than the roofs. This is a real concern. I don't know that that's true, for one thing. And if the panels are melting snow faster than what's on the roof, then what you're doing is you're generating liquid water, which then goes to the roofs, which are, since they're not warming up as much as we're being told, that water is going to freeze. It's going to become solid blocks of ice. Another thing we're told is that these are ballast installations. I assume that means there are like heavy weights, maybe lead weights or something like that attached to the panels so they don't blow off. That's what I'm assuming.
I can get you an answer for that. Landon, can you answer that question for Mr. Pasevich?
Yeah, they're concrete blocks are the ballast. There's
Concrete blocks.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's specialized concrete blocks that are denser than your typical, what you can buy at Home Depot.
What makes them denser? Is it an addition, like a metallic
Just the
addition?
composition that they use.
The composition, okay, composition, right. And we're all made of molecules, just to get that clear. So if there's something else in the blocks and they're very heavy and they're resting on the roof material,
No, they'll be on the racking,
on a rack.
The racking.
What's the rack resting on?
the roofing.
So the rack is on the roofing, the blocks are on the rack, and the panels are on the
rack.
On the rack also. So you put a rack on the roof, which is just resting on the roof.
Correct.
Okay, so where the rack is resting on the roof, is it going to make an impression in the roof?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay, so we don't know. So I would think that that's going to push down on a relatively soft material and reduce the thickness and potentially cause wear, especially if there's wind blowing and the things start to shift around. This is a problem.
Let me get an answer for you, Mr. Pasevich. Jeff, can you answer that question?
Yeah, the racking systems sit on a slip sheet that sits on the roofing membrane. The weight of these panels is distributed around the frame, so it's not a concentrated load in one particular space. We don't want something like that that's going to cause what you're describing, something to impact the roof cover. That's not something that we would approve. So the racking system and the weights are designed to spread the weight of these panels out. That's how it's designed. Very common process with this.
Well, I assume a racking system is probably a tubular material. And a tubular material is linear, and it's laying on the roof. And that's going to be pressing, so the weight is going to be concentrated probably in a 1-inch area across a length. So to me, that's concentration of weight on a rack. The other thing I have a question about, a comment about rather, because in other words, you need to show us a design, you need to show us the actual structure, so that it will alleviate that particular concern, all right? The other thing I want to mention is that it's more of a broad statement, which is that we keep talking about how this is green, green, green. And like a previous speaker mentioned, a lot of energy and a lot of materials goes into creating these things. And for the people to also say that there's no environmental impact from these is wrong, because there's a mining, manufacturing, transportation, installation, all of these things use energy and use raw materials which go into the panels. So to say that it's somehow free, like these panels just came out of heaven, is not true. The true cost of green energy, I'm trying to say, is debatable, all right? Then you have the decommissioning and removal and disposal of the panels. And there are people now, even locally, that are getting into the business of disposal of solar panels because they are considered hazardous waste, as far as I can tell. Everybody's saying they're hazardous waste. They have to be dismantled and handled very carefully and probably put into a line secured landfill. So that's very debatable as far as it being free and no cost to us. That's very, very debatable at the minimum. And the other thing too is that, and I want to emphasize this, that the original power purchase agreement that was created and signed was for, very specifically for the Clay Pit Road site. And it had nothing to do with all of this stuff, which even since April and since the April town meeting, now everything has gotten more complicated. And there aren't fewer questions, there are more questions. Because for the first time, we're seeing carports and vast arrays all over these roofs. And, by the way, the roofs, which haven't been fully evaluated yet. We see the various percentages with moisture damage, which, again, as far as I can tell, that moisture damage assessment was done, what, 3 years ago? At least 2 years ago, before our so-called roofing on-call consultant came on. And now we know that all the roofs have to be reevaluated. So it just blows my mind that we almost voted for this in April. And since then, there's been a pile of new questions and concerns, and apparently we're uncovering apparent illegalities and your exceedance of the scope of the original authorization for solar panels, which only applied, I'll say it for the third time, to the Clay Pit Road site. I think all of these solar installations, every single one of them, like the roofing contracts, now should go out to bid. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mike. I know people talking about the contract and mentioning what the cost would be for the town. I was looking at one of them that was assigned to one of the schools, and I think it was page 13, 5.5, there's a force majeure in there. I would be under the impression that with that force majeure, that we wouldn't be responsible for any cost.
I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't be able to answer that, Mr. Kelly, but we can ask Bob, town council. All
right. Maybe I'll make a suggestion to our chairwoman that at a future date, that we hold a public hearing with the select board on this matter. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. With that, I just want to thank everyone, and I think, Mr. Kelly, do you want to give some closing remarks? Yes, do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I did just have one quick question. Steve
Sure.
Steve Lucatus, 184 Elm Street. As far as the car parts are concerned, is there an increased cost to repaving underneath the carports because of, and I don't mean initially right now. I mean, we need to repave every few years. Is it going to be more expensive to repave because now you've got stanchions in the way? So the machinery that's that does the repaving can fit underneath it. I'm assuming so if it's under 14 feet, although some of that paving stuff's pretty high. Is it going to be a lot more expensive to repave underneath those carports? I'm sure a minor expense more, but it will be, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't be able to answer that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lang, can you answer that?
I can't answer that as much. I'll give you information that I have, just past experience is there are companies out there that can pave under these at, equal or, like you said, a slightly different cost. I mean, there's equipment to get under these and repave if needed.
I mean, you have to go, the equipment has to go around each of the supports, so that's there's some added.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing as like doing a manhole and, it's similar size to a manhole cover. So they got to go around all that equipment in the road too. So it's, it's pretty simple process.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. That was
Thank you. Yes.
Diane Jordan, Bancroft Street. Sorry, I'm not sure if I missed this because I came in late, but I didn't know if they explained about the batteries, what kind of batteries they are, and
We can get
how
you that
long they
answer.
last, and
Sure.
so forth.
The batteries, so I don't know what time. Like I said, this is all preliminary engineering, just to have all these open discussions. The batteries will last the same amount of time as the solar system. That is the life of the system.
Oh, so are they lead acid batteries, lithium ion batteries, or emerging technologies batteries?
I can't answer that today.
So you don't know what kind of, they haven't decided what they're using there?
Yeah, we can get more information on that for sure and share it.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And how are they being charged? Like, how do they charge
From the solar. So the solar, the way the batteries work, you'll get all the engineering from the solar panels. It goes into their DC, they're called DC coupled systems. So you have DC power the solar modules take the DC power from the sun. That'll go directly into the batteries and it'll start charging the batteries. And then you have a converter on between the batteries and into where we're going to tie in, and that changes it to AC, so that's how we get the power.
Oh, okay. But you don't know the kind of batteries? So you'll be...
There's many manufacturers and types of batteries out there. I just don't know specifically which ones we're using here.
Okay. I'm wondering that because there's a big difference in cost for the company, for your company, so wouldn't that affect the bottom line of...
No, because like I said, the PPAs is that price is the price. So
Okay.
It's better for our performance to be high end.
Okay. All right. And then I wanted to ask Mr. Moresco if you could post, like on the town Facebook page, maybe a schedule of the dollar figures, like specifically how much, just that, separate, because the other link that you sent, that was nice of you to compile all that information, but people couldn't read through all of it, and there was kind of a lot of unnecessary information in there that made it frustrating for people to read through all of it. So maybe like once a week, post a specific detail, like the cost analysis, like per school, how much the rent is going to be, how much it, and then I would personally like to see a schedule of the payback to the stabilization fund, and then also kind of a plan or maybe ideas that you have going forward about what money, how much and when the extra money will be going into the general fund, and maybe what that might be earmarked for potentially. So I know that you wouldn't really know that now as far as what it was going to be used for, but just kind of a specific dollar explanation I think would be helpful for people. And at the town meeting, if they could separate each school roof as a separate article, I think you'd have a much better success rate of getting them passed, because if it is lumped together, my feeling is that it won't pass. That's just my opinion.
Great.
If you want to
Thank you.
be successful in it, I think people want to fix the older schools. That could happen, but if it's lumped together again, I think that it won't pass. My
And
opinion.
we will get that information because before you got it, we did go through the presentation and we do have that breakdown. So we have that out there, and the revenue is highlighted as revenue on there, but we'll separate that out, the revenue and then the cost of the roofing repairs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and maybe like post it, like just a specific thing, kind of on a weekly basis, just to help communicate to people.
Great.
Rather than like a whole thing where there was like 12 links. It was just impossible for people to read through all of that.
Great.
Not that I don't
Thank you.
appreciate you compiling it, but
Thank you, I
it just made
appreciate
it
that.
difficult, so.
Thank you.
I've got a good scientific question, and this is for the photovoltaic guy. After 25 years, how much energy do you think all those panels in total will generate over 25 years? You've got to have an estimate for that.
From just past experience talking to my engineers, and, I think it drops to 80%, I think, over 25 years, something like that.
No. How much energy do you think all those panels will generate in total over a 25-year period?
Oh, I can't answer that today.
You've got to have a number, because that's the only way they ever came up with how to pay the
but
town.
that's not my forte.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
I'd
I'm-
love to hear that. Like, just
Yeah,
how
no,
much
I mean,
energy is generated by this
we
thing,
can
you know?
we can absolutely get that number for sure.
I'd love to hear
Yeah,
that sometime.
so we can get that number.
We'll get that and put it up on the site. Sure.
I mean, it'd be fascinating.
No, great question. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Kelly.
I want to thank everyone for coming to this informational meeting. I hope some of your questions, if not all, were answered. If you still have questions like I do, please feel free to reach out to the select board and we will do our best to get answers for you. I am hoping that there will be a public hearing with the select board in the future. I hope everyone exercises caution the next few days with the heat wave we are in. Please use caution with your physical activities and drink plenty of water. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Just before you all leave, I just want to just end with this. There was a lot of information. We had questions about mold. We had questions about toxicity. So many questions. All these questions will be worked on, and we will do our best to make sure that this project is prepared, well thought out, and we've done everything we can do to get this to the point where we're proud to put it in front of the town of Marshfield for our December 16th, if that's the date we actually end up with. The revenue is great, but we need to do what we need to do to make sure that we understand what we're getting into. So I appreciate you all coming, and thank Michael for the work, and thank you, gentlemen, for showing up and asking, answering the questions for our citizens. So I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, good night.